Captain Murphy here from piratesahoy.net. Today we're going to take a look at a substance file that I've put together, just kind of a testing file to show some of the procedures. I've had a couple of requests for more detailed look at how substances are put together and some of the ways that you can utilize some of the selections, or how I'm actually making these things adjustable, like how I'm modifying certain settings. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show just from kind of a overview of the sub, show you what I'm using to create the end result. The one thing that to note about substances is that when you're creating them for Unity, we end up having to merge two of the channels to use the basic RGB, actually the RGBA split for the metallic, because we're putting the metallic on the red, but we're putting the smoothness or roughness on the alpha channel. So when we get done, the example that shows inside of Substance Designer is not actually correct, because we're not seeing metallic or that roughness right now. It doesn't really correctly show, because even though we've specified it here that we should see metallic and roughness, for some reason it's not really working right. It's actually a bug that's been listed. Maybe it'll be fixed, who knows. Anyway, so I'm going to show you what I do and how I'm kind of doing it. So this is a bronze, and what you're seeing here, this green is actually patina. Bronze doesn't rust, it still oxidizes, but it's not an iron oxide. Instead, what it's doing is it's creating an oxide, but it's called a patina. And so it turns kind of this greenish color. I don't have any specular maps created yet that change the specular color. Technically, it would change color based on whether it was worn down or brand new or patinaed out, but that's not being created yet. So what I'm going to show is the selections that I've created. Over here on the left, you can see I've got my input parameters, and we've got the patina strength. And as we adjust that, you'll see this green coloration will go away or get stronger. And so we can adjust how patinaed the metal looks. So we can either leave it with just a plain brassy look, or we can go back to add more patina or less. We can control that through a coloration, and so a lot of these here use a color value. So when you're looking at this patina strength here, what I'm doing is just assigning it a float 1, and so it's just basic float variable, and I'm assigning it as a slider, meaning that I'm going to make it look like a slider inside Unity to adjust. I'm clamping the value, meaning that it's only going to stay between 0 and 1. I'm not going to allow it to go any further outside of that value range. So you can't go to 2, because technically there's no reason you should. It won't do anything to the coloration or the end result. It's only going between 0 and 1. And so this is the public value that I'm showing that actually corresponds to one up here. And so we'll set it to 0.5, which is kind of a grayish color. And then looking up here, you can see that these are uniform colors. But what I've done is I've assigned that uniform color here under the specific parameters. You've got output color. Under that, I can edit, and I can see I've got a float. It's what I'm doing is this is a you can modify under each one of these objects. So if you're looking at that that parameter, I can then go into here and I can do modifications to it. So if I wanted to do a get float of this value, I could even then go into it and say, well, let's take it and let's multiply it by 2, or subtract 0.5, or do a division on it, and then change the output. So we could then make this output modifiable based off of the input that we're getting here. So right now we're seeing the variables is patina strength. And so that's the external variable we created here. So we've got patina strength. I've assigned the identifier of patina strength. In here, I've got that variable get float of patina strength. Pretty simple. And so what you're seeing on the output, though, is I've got a color mode of grayscale. I'm assigning it between a value of 0 and 1, which then corresponds to a value of 0 to 255. So you're seeing that 0 to 255 of grayscale coloring, which is then used to modify. You can see these little tendrils coming down, each one of these going to the flows. That modifies certain values down the chain. And so I've arranged this to show you the different ways that I'm rearranging things. So if you look at this flow graph, you can see these colored lines here. That means that is a actual colored image or a colored value being passed along. These gray ones mean they are grayscale. So that's going to be technically a value of 0 to 255. These are going to be 4 values of 0 to 255. So these technically will take up more time, so you want to kind of minimize using a lot of colors and use a lot more grayscales for your items. Most of these are not going to need anything more than one channel. So if we look at our normal, it's only in one channel. This is the actual image prior to it becoming the normal itself. So it's just in grayscale. This is our roughness, and this one here is our metallic. And so you can see these are all just grayscale images. We don't need to make them into big fancy colored images because Unity won't even use them anyway. It's only look for the grayscale channels. So this is what we're looking at. And so what I've done is I've got these different variables up here. These are the inputs. So we're seeing this is all those selectors. That's our patina strength, our brass wear strength, all that. That's what that's getting this information from. Now I've got another one which is a scratching, and that's down here. I've got this generator which has a scratches amount. It makes more or less scratches based on the strength value you put into there. And then these, what I've done is I've got kind of a split here. So this is our values that are being created, and these are the ones that we're controlling, I should say. These here are just colors. And this is the color that I'm using to create this patina coloration, the blacks, I should say that's not black, it's actually a very dark brown. This is kind of the lighter color of the brass. This is the lighter color of the patina, and then the darker color of patina. So each one of these is used, and then I use kind of gradients in between them. And then down here I've got my noise. So this is our, it's called a grunge map. It's a noise generation. You can modify this however you want to, and you can even assign these again, so if you wanted to modify the grunge map dynamically. This is a basic noise map, which I'm using for a roughness value, and then this is a scratches, which I'm using to actually put scratches on the cannon itself. So I use these in certain orders. So to begin, all these colors are used to create this, the brass wear and the patina. So if you follow that chain down here, this is this whole section here is creating the diff or base color map. This section here is creating our normal. This section is our specular or our roughness, and then this section here is our metallic. And you know, this is not, like I say, it's not a perfect mapping, but it's a pretty good start. All right, so we can kind of chase this down. So we start with our initial noise map, which is our grunge map here. I do a transform 2D, which means I turn it 90 degrees. You can do whatever you want to with it. What it is, I turn it 90 degrees and then I shifted it over and down halfway. So now we end up with 2 different grunge maps, but we only used one. We only had to generate one to create it, and then I use another one to just create a shift off of it. And then I use those shifting ones to make it so that the wear pattern doesn't match the grunge, or the wear pattern doesn't match the patina map. So they're not using the same appearance, but I didn't have to generate 2 different noise maps. I only generated one. But to most people, you wouldn't be able to see that. All right, so when we do the diffuse, what I do is I blur it out the first time. So I make a nice fuzzy version of it, and then I blend that back in with the colors of the light. In other words, I'm seeing what the wear map is going to look like. And this is being used with this selector here, which is one of the wear parameters we can adjust. And so it uses a blend, and what the blend does is it takes the foreground against the opacity of that grayscale in the background. So now it's going to take this map, and then depending on how bright or how dim that other map is, we're going to see it change. So we can go ahead and take a look at here. We'll look at our I believe that's color difference. And as I change this color difference, you'll watch that map slowly fade away. And that's just because I'm taking it against that opacity map down here. Now, when I make that and I apply colors to it, I've applied 2 different colors. I've got our base color, which is our light one, and then our dark one. And then I use this output to create the opacity map for this coloration. So now we've got the two different colors, and again, so as we adjust our color difference, you'll watch that opacity map changes and puts one color on top of the other one based on the opacity map of the lower section. Now I just keep repeating this over and over again. Now I take this one here, which is the same map as this blurred one, but I left it nice and fine. And so then again, with that wear being applied to it, I put a kind of more structured version on top, give it a little bit more fine details to the coloration. But I've got that nice blurred background to it, so it gives it a nice transition, but it gives you kind of a kind of sharp edges to it. And then I blend in the first color of the patina, and then blend in the second color of the patina. And at the very end, I blend in this scratching map. So you can see down here, I got that scratches being generated. And so our end result is this patina mapping that you can see that we've got all the different layers put together. So if you look at how I put this together for the next portion, which is our normal map, you'll see that I reuse a lot of the same components. You can see that I reuse, well, these are our controls to set certain functions here. Let's see if I can get, there we go. So this is just our normal. This is essentially our normal strength feeding in here. And I'm using this as a base roughness. So each cannon can be adjusted on a roughness of the overall cannon, not just the area where the patina affects it. Now down here I've got the overall roughness, and then I've also got the scratches, because those get made into part of the normal map. The second thing I do is I pull in part of that patina coloration. So the patina does affect the normal map as well. So the more patina you get, the more that affects the normal map, and it creates these rough spots where that patina is the heaviest. So what we're looking at there is we've got our map coming in from our patina, and we do some just basic adjustments on it. And so here's our this is where we fold in the base roughness. So we can go from just a basic, this is where patina is at, to where there is a roughness on top of it, and we multiply those two together to get our end result. And then we add in our scratches at the very end, and then we get a invert, which takes it from being that black and white to being the white and black. We just invert the grayscale coloration because it would otherwise end up with the scratches sticking out and the patina backwards. So it works good for some of these maps here, but we needed to flip it for the normals to look right. And so there we go. There's our normal map right there. You know, so it's not too hard once you break it down to each one of the components. And then we repeat the process down here. We do the same thing for our metallic, and we get just some basic metallic outputs. The one thing we do different down here is this is our roughness, which is our shininess of the object. We have also put in a shininess factor, so we can control the overall shininess of the gun. And then we can go ahead and also modify the metallic, which is this one right here. So we can adjust the overall metallic, and we can even invert the metallic, which gives us a little bit different appearance, so that way the modeler can tweak their metallic as they want. So this is our end result. What we do on this one though is we take the output of our roughness and the output of our metallic, and we put them together in an RGBA merge, which gives us an end result which has the red channel has metallic, and then the alpha has roughness. And again, it doesn't show down here correctly because for some reason that physicalized shader doesn't handle it right. From what I would heard though, there's supposed to be a Unity, I guess, compatible shader that you can add in here. I just haven't been able to find it yet. So anyway, so this is our overall structure. So I'm going to show that inside of Unity here. And what I've done is I've turned off all of the selectors. These are the selectors we would have inside of the public variables that I exposed. And so I just went ahead and I zeroed them all out. That way we're looking at everything is nice and clean. We start from scratch here. And I'm going to go ahead and begin just by adding in some base roughness, and then kind of modify the shininess. So we take our base bronze coloration, and we're going to add in a little bit of roughness. And what we're doing is we're modifying the normal map. You can see if I go all the way to the end, this is a really rough cannon. If I back it all the way down, it's just barely visible. But you really can't see it because it's not shiny yet. So we're going to give the gun a little bit of shininess, and then that really makes those that roughness start to kind of come out. But we also want to make the gun look a little more metallic, because right now it looks, as someone put it, looks like cardboard, and that's very true. So if we increase the metallic nature of the gun, if we bump it up a little bit, we can increase the shininess a little bit. And so just by playing with these values, you're allowing the modeler to kind of play around with these very quickly without having to go into Photoshop and modify everything individually. And so there's our kind of a base bronzish color here. You know, it's kind of dark, but we'll get to that in a second here. So we're getting kind of a good shininess. Let's kind of shine it up a little bit more. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our color difference. And so this is as the guns get older and they get some more wear on them. Somebody polishes on them a little bit. They look a little brighter. What I'm going to do eventually is take this color difference and then apply that to the shininess, so that way it's going to modify the shininess overall and make these worn spots a little brighter, but then the darker spots a little duller. So that's one of the things I've got planned. And so now we've got, you know, it's looking a little better. It's looking a little less static. Doesn't look like a single object. And then we go into, let's say we add some scratches to it. And we don't want to add, you know, we don't want to cover the gun in scratches. But you can see how it modifies the normal map as well as adds those darkened colors to the base color map. So we'll just go ahead and add a little over 100. Okay. So now we got some scratches and scuffs. Looks like the gun's been around a little while. And then we're going to go ahead and add in some patina. And this is where we can make the gun look like it's been, you know, at the bottom of the sea for a few years, or we can just make it look like it's been on the gun's deck for, you know, a few months. We got some green patina going on here. And so this is just kind of an overview of how these substances work and how they can be put to use, and kind of showing how each channel can affect the others on a dynamic scale. And you can see it is pretty quick. I mean, it's, you know, as we're adjusting this slider, it's adjusting that that object. So it's not long term. It doesn't take a long time to do this, and it's all being done in the engine. So if a modeler wants the boat to get older or the cannons to be older on deck, then we can do that dynamically. What we could eventually do is tie all of these together into an age slider, and then using, like I showed you before, where we expose a parameter, and then we can show this. We could actually make a single age slider and then use this to do a bunch of calculations. That way we can see multiple calculations occurring. And if we need to go into a little more detail on that, I can show you on our planks how that one works. It's got a ton of calculations to go on in the background. Anyway, so this is just kind of a quick overview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to go to piratesahoy.net to volunteer your time, and to go to heartsofoakgame.com to stay up to date. Thanks.